Thank you so much, Mark, and welcome everyone. I wanted to start with a little reading from the Song of Songs, Shir Hashirim. And I have this hung in my house. It's a micrography of the Song of Songs. And the scribe wrote this in such a beautiful way. It starts in the center and moves in an infinite progression as the number 8. So you read it circularly as you shift. And in the large print, it has the climax of the Song of Songs, which goes like this. Simeni kachotam alibecha, kachotam al zero echa, ki azo kamaves ahava, choshech kishaol kina, rishafeha, rishpei, eish shalheves ya, mayim rabim, lo yuchlu lechabot et hava, uneharot lo yishtafuha, im yiteinish, et kol hom beito be'avo, boz yovuzu lo. So those are two sentences from chapter 7 in the Song of Songs, and you will see later in our meditation on Ani L'Dodi V'Dodi Li, which also comes from the Song of Songs, that our meditation today will focus on the emotion of love. And what I sang, Simeni Kachotam Alibecha, translates as to, some would say engrave, but I would say place my love as a seal on your heart. Some of you may have been at the sit on Friday, and this past Friday, Sarah Waxman from At the Well gave an introduction to the energy of this month of Elul. Yes, yesterday was the first day of Elul, today is the second. She asked those of you who were with us on Friday to respond to the word forgiveness. And many of you put all kinds of answers into the chat. Sarah added her own, which was how forgiveness relates to our ability for compassion and love, self-love, and love for the other. I come to you as a teacher and as a participant in this wonderful spiritual community that the Institute for Jewish Spirituality, Mark, and others has opened the space for. And it's important to realize how important each one of you is. Each one of you is an integral part of this community. Just imagine if none of you showed up last week or today or the rest of this week. You are what makes this happen. It's a gift that you give yourself and a gift you give each other every time that you zoom in. I have prepared two meditations for us today, which both connect to our capacity for love. The first, as it is Elul, is the blowing of the Shofar. It's a tradition that we start blowing the Shofar already on the new moon on Rosh Chodesh. I came across this beautiful description, which says as follows. The cry of the Shofar symbolizes not only our personal tears, but summons us to hear the cry of others. In the sobbing of the shofar, we are to hear the whimper of a bereaved mother and a bereaved father longing for their beloved child, a husband desperately missing a wife who has passed, a wife longing for her husband who has left this world, a person who has lost their partner, the cry of a child for a parent who is no longer present. And so we find in the Talmud in Rosh Hashanah 33b that the sounds of the shofar, the tekiah, the shivarim, and the teruah correspond to the following cries, which are called wailing, whimpering, and moaning. I want you to reflect on, how did you first know that you were loved? Some of you may have felt it in utero, and certainly you may have felt it when you were responded to. If you were hungry or uncomfortable and cried, and then you were picked up, held, comforted, or fed. The blessing on the shofar is not about blowing, but about hearing the shofar. And you will all hear it. I'm going to blow it for you. And yet it becomes more active, more participatory if you are not just hearing it, but you are also listening to it, and therefore meditating on the sounds that emanate from the shofar. What is so important and innovative about Kabbalah is the shift of emphasis in Jewish ritual. We're shifting from the performance of the mitzvah to the intention of the mitzvah, from just hearing the shofar to listening and meditating on the sound as it enters you. I remember vividly my father blowing the shofar. The blasts he blew from his delicate shofar went right through me. I can still feel the vibration and how it made me tear up every time that he blew the shofar. So as you listen to the sounds of the shofar, I suggest and ask you to feel yourself awakening in the middle of the night to a baby crying, to the compassion that you felt seeing George Floyd crying out for help, or feeling the silent scream of desperation of so many millions who are suffering physical or mental torment, even today. Let the sounds of the shofar help you access love for those who are in need of your support and your attentive caring and concern. Just take a little sip. And for those who are aware, we usually have someone call out the sounds of the shofar. In Elul, we tend not to, and I will blow it, as is the tradition in Kabbalah, to blow a full set, which is tekiah, the long sound, shivarim, the broken sound, and then the cherua, the staccato, followed by the final tekiah. And I ask you all to just let those sounds continue to reverberate for you. The long, piercing sound of the tekiah, the broken cry, what is called moaning, and the staccato sound of the trua, whimpering. On Friday, Sarah mentioned the acronym for Elul, And Kat, if you could bring that slide up. Thank you so much. So the phrase in Hebrew is Ani lidodi vidodi li, again coming from the Song of Songs. I am for my beloved, and my beloved is for me. And if you notice in the red, the first four letters of the phrase Ani lidodi vidodi li is the acronym for this month, the month of Elul. Ani, I, lidodi, for my beloved, vidodi, and my beloved, li, for me. So I want to introduce, and again, I don't know how many times other teachers have done this with you or for you, but I want to lead you in a typical mantra meditation. That's what we call it nowadays. There are many different forms of Jewish meditation, of course, including sitting silently. But it's in its origin in the 12th and 13th century in southern France and then in Spain. The form that Jewish meditation took most often was the repetition of a word or the repetition of a phrase. And the Kabbalists also, of course, were as interested in the effect on consciousness of the repetition so that one got out of their typical thought patterns and used the repetition as a way to focus the mind away from any distractions, and then eventually to get to a single point of where one is expanding oneself, one's consciousness, followed by silence. And after a long repetition of words, one actually feels the silence even more. I would say actually you taste the silence. So what I'd like to do is lead you through this meditation through a repetition of Ani lidodi vidodi li, but we will also incorporate some breathing into it. So we're going to take a breath in on the word Ani, Ani, and on the breath out, lidodi, vidodi, li. So on the in-breath, Ani, Ani, vidodi, li. Now you can say these words silently to yourself as you're breathing. I prefer, for my own practice, saying it out loud. And on the in-breath, we're saying the first word Ani, out-breath, lidodi, in-breath, vidodi, out-breath, li. So let's spend a few minutes on this meditation, and then we will sit in silence for a few more minutes. Anticipate that we'll spend about 4 minutes on each of the mantra meditation, saying it out loud and breathing, and then continuing to breathe, of course, in and out during our silence. Make sure you're sitting comfortably. in a way that you can sustain that comfort so that the body is no longer a distraction. Take a deep breath in silently and a deep breath out. And on the in breath, ani, out breath, ledoti, ledoti, ani, ledoti, 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 And if you have been saying the phrase ani, ledodi, ledodi, li, now sit in silence and bring in the energy of the month of Elul. I am for my beloved is for me. I am for my beloved is for me. And take a few last deep breaths in. Deep breath out. And when you're ready to open your eyes, if they've been closed, and come back into our room. Kat, I don't know if you can put up the second slide, and also put that into the chat. So Ani Lidodi Vidodi Li, said as a mantra, is an example of mantra meditation, using the words that take us to a feeling, a state of quiescence. And while this is a Jewish mystical tradition, we also find this mantra meditation in the East, both in the Hindu tradition and in the Buddhist tradition. And I put up two examples which I regularly meditate to. One is called Angel Wash by Adam Bauer. I behold you, beautiful one. I behold you, child of the earth and sun. Let my love wash over you. Let my love watch over you. And the incomparable Ram Dass, as he teaches the meditation, I am loving awareness. Thank you, Kat, for the slide. And I want to wish all of you the start of the journey with IJS through this month of Elul. And as Sarah said on Friday, she and many others this coming month will talk about forgiveness. But what is at the foundation of forgiveness is our working on our compassion and our love. And what better place to start than to hear the cry of the shofar, the cry of those who are in need, including ourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, David, for the beautiful practice. Lead us into Elul together. And we seal it as we do each time by offering an opportunity for those of you who are in mourning or or if it's your custom to participate in Kaddish, to do so and put the name or names of those you're honoring today in the chat box, either now, after we recite Kaddish. If you're not reciting Kaddish, simply to stay present and stay in this loving practice that David has led us in by offering your love and support and compassion for those who are. We'll invite to join me by rising in body or in spirit to recite the Kaddish together. Thanks to Kat. Thanks to Kat for, oops. Let's see if I can fix my audio here. Is that better? Better? Yes, okay. I invite those who are reciting Kaddish to join me by rising in body or in spirit to recite the words together. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah. Yamati,
Ibra, Kirite, Yami Malkute, Aikon, Yamokon, Ukaye, Yehobe Israel,
Ba'agala, Ubizman, Karib,
Karib,
Ru,
Amen.
Yehi
Shmei
Shmei
Rabba
Rabba
Mevorach
Le'olam
Le'olam
Ulamei
Le'olam
Amaya. Yiparach
Yiparach Vishtabach
V'ar
V'Par
Mam
V'Tamam
Naseh
V'Tachne V'Tadar
Yitar
V'Tabel
Bale
V'Tabal Shmei
U'Tablau
Kudusha
Shmei Dukusha V'Yichu
V'Yichu
Ve'ela
Ve'ela Minko
Birchata
Birchata
V'Shirata
V'Shirata
Tushbechata
Tushbechata
V'Nechemata
V'Nechemata
Ba'amiran
Miram
Ba'alma
Bialma
V'Imru
V'Imru
Amen.
Amen.
Yehi
Yehi
Shlama Rabba
Shlama
Min
Rabba Min
Shemaya
Shemaya
V'Chaim
Hayim
Aleinu
Aleinu
V'Yal Kol
V'Yakul
Yisrael
Yisrael
V'Imru Amen.
Amen.
Oseh Shalom V'Lama
Shalom,
Hu Yaseh Shalom
Shalom,
Aleinu V'Yal
Obio,
Kol
Kol
Yisrael
Yisrael,
V'Yal Kol Yoshvei Tevel.
Amen. Tevel, Vimru,
Hi,
Amen.
honey. I forgot it was Shabbat. It's not Shabbat.
It's not Shabbat. Well, we always have a little bit of Shabbat here every day. Friends, thanks for joining us. Thanks for our teacher for today, David Sanders of the Kabbalah Experience in Denver, and putting in the chat box again the link to their website if you'd like to check out their wonderful offerings. Thanks, David, for your generosity in leading us today and your skill. And we're looking forward to a few minutes of conversation for those who are able and would like to stay on for some questions and answers with David, and also just an opportunity to reflect on the practice today. You're welcome to do so. As always, if you're leaving us, we hope you'll join us tomorrow. Cantor Heather Batchelor will be leading us from Montreal as we move into the month of Elul. And of course, as always, we thank Kat Esposito for holding our tech sanctuary, our Mishkan, so beautifully and skillfully. And thank you first and foremost, simply for being here and creating this community of practice. So thanks for showing up. And if you're leaving us now, we hope to see you tomorrow. If you have a question for David about the practice of the teaching, please put it in the chat box and I'll keep an eye out for that. We'll keep an eye out for that. If it's a question, if you can preface it by writing question in all caps, keeps it a little bit easier to spot the questions. Or if you just have a reflection you'd like to share on your experience, that's great also. I want to thank you, David. I want to, I want to try to tie together the two meditations you led us in. I'm familiar with the teaching that the sound of the shofar is intended in part to evoke the sound of crying, in fact, in the Talmud, I think as you said, it's actually the cry of the enemy. Sisera's
His mother, yeah.
Sisera's mother, it made me think about what I was like as I was listening to you sound the shofar and listening to it in that key. I thought about what is my reaction when I hear another person crying. I wanted to tie that together with the second meditation, which was about loving connection and awareness of loving connection. So I'm just going to share for myself, and I wonder if you'd be willing to share as well about, and whether those who are staying on for this portion would reflect on that. What does it evoke in us? Like I was feeling as though there's an aspect of me that is terrified to hear the cry and shuts down. And there's a part of me that it kind of pierces, and yet there's a predominant part that pierces through that instinct to kind of shut it out and gets through in some way. So that even if I, for example, am angry at the one who's crying, or feeling alienated from who's crying, I feel a sense of connection that is undeniable, despite my efforts to put up a barrier that wants to shut that out. So that's how that played together for me, to feel like, oh, that really cry, when somebody cries, if whatever discomfort that evokes in me, it gets through that, defense. So I don't know, did you have a sense of connection between those two pieces that you were teaching today?
Mm-hmm. Well, my daughter said to me last night, she's just started middle school, and she said, "Dad," and tears were in her eyes. I'm, I don't know what my place is. And although I'm not addressing your point, Mark, which is, that tears can somehow soften us, right? They can soften our defenses, right? We see this person crying, but especially if it's someone we love, we want to embrace them. We want to have them come close and find a place with us.
Mhm.
So the tears and crying come from as is taught in many places. The tears well up in our eyes, right? They well up because they're coming from a deep well. They're coming from a place because the eye in Hebrew is ayin and a well is ayin, right? So it's the tears are coming from that deep place. So we know that, and there are tears of joy too, which come from a deep place as well. But the tears are coming from a place that the person who's experiencing them senses it's coming from that depth. And the person who is hearing the cry or watching the tears are also recognizing this is coming from a place of depth.
Mhm.
I think that depth somehow overcomes, right? Our going back to the point of Sarah's forgiveness, right? We really know someone is asking for forgiveness if they're crying, if they're showing us their emotion.
Mhm.
And we know that if we get there, if the shofar can allow us to really open up and experience the depth of our sensitivity, right, to what it is that we need to look at for ourselves, and I think that also helps.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why even though you're citing the Talmud piece about Sisera's mother, right? It's like I think I saw someone because as I was preparing for this today, that even when our enemies are crying, right? Even when someone is of that nature that's crying, it's our human instinct to feel for their pain, for their bereavement.
Mhm.
And she was crying for the death of her son.
Mhm. Right. Right. But when I appreciate you sharing, your example. I was thinking about, I guess I'm thinking that it's an invitation, it's an experience of others' vulnerability and their willingness to reveal that tenderness, right? That vulnerable aspect of ourselves. And maybe, that's one way of thinking about Elul and the theme of love that you grounded us in today is that we have to have that sense of feeling suffused with and in an environment of love in order to be vulnerable, to allow to cry, to hear others' cries, to cry together. Like, imagine if this country could cry together, what that would mean, right? That was what I was thinking about. Well, let me get to a couple of questions here that people have. One is, let's see. Ooh, I went right past it. Sorry. Well, one question is, beloved, Dodi here. What does beloved mean to you? Let's talk about that a little bit, about using that Anila Dodi Vidodi Li mantra, as you said, which people could carry through their day. It was really, really appreciated. You're guiding us through that, and I can feel like that will stay with me, today and going forward into the month. That word, Dodi, my beloved.
Mm-hmm. The word yedid, yedid, yud dalid, is the word that we use for like an intimate friend. And I remember when I asked these children to draw things, this young woman instinctively drew two hands clasped with each other, yad yad, yedid. But Dodi is taking those letters, right, and going even deeper than just what we call intimate friendship. Right? It's really what we call the beloved. And I saw another question in the chat, which I also I'm trying to remember who wrote it, but Lori, who wrote that we were translating it as
I am my beloved.
I am for my beloved is for me. Lori, I agreed. I did not like the standard translation, which is, and my beloved is mine. Because again, love, the Hebrew word for love, ahava, means about giving, right? So I'm there for you. That's what love is. I'm there to support you. I'm there in your hard times and in your great times to celebrate. I'm there for you. So Dodi, I think, is an appreciation of a place that's with this with the similar letters even deeper than the friendship. It's not just giving a hand and holding and clasping hands, but the embrace of what love is.
Gail is asking, is the beloved supposed to be our relationship to divine? And I think the answer there is yes. That's what we're talking about here, right?
Rabbi Akiva said that Shir Hashirim, the Song of Songs, is the holiest of holies, right? It's the holiest of all the books. And there are those who like to take this song as just a metaphor. I would suggest that the level of manifestation, what it means is that we're taking that love that permeates all of created reality. We take that love and we learn most from it in terms of our love for others and our love for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So Rabbi Kook, who was a Kabbalist, said the reason Rabbi Akiva could teach us that was because he had a Dodi, and his Dodi was Rachel, his wife, who sacrificed so much for him. And he could speak to the actual manifestation of love, a loving relationship in that depth.
Mm.
So yes, our love for the divine, or the divine love for us, which is metaphorically in the song, has to be also taken literally. And it's one of those beautiful places where Kabbalah actually suggests that we take the metaphoric and we go to the literal. Typically, we're going from the literal to the metaphoric. But in this situation, there's a crossover as well.
Yeah. David, we have just a couple of minutes, but I wanted to invite you to say a few words about your organization and what the Kabbalah experience offers. A lot of people may not be familiar.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mark, for the opportunity. So we're based here in Denver, but with the miraculous technology of Zoom, we just like IJS, we are now national and in fact international. So we welcome anyone to our beginning classes and more advanced classes. You can see all of them that are offered in the fall. We start the week of September 12th. Our foundation classes are for the fall, Soul and Space, where we deal with unseen reality and also the Tree of Life. And then we also will offer high holiday services free. Those, of course, for those who are not in Denver, they'll be on Zoom. And we offer a service for the first day of Rosh Hashanah and for Kol Nidre and for Yom Kippur. And we're entering our 18th year of study and practice. So the only criteria is that you have to have an open mind and a spiritual seeker's passion, and also the ability to participate in dialogue and discussion, because I'm not used to talking with 150 or 200 people at one time. We have small classes, and the reason we keep them small, which is between 8 and 12 people, is really to allow for people to be engaged as fully as they can and really go through a process of questioning and coming to new understanding for themselves. It really is aimed at a transformative experience.
Well, Mazel Tov on high years, and
Thank you.
really glad that we could, help make people aware of your offerings, David. And thank you so much, really, for this beautiful entree into the month of Elul for our practice this week. Just a reminder that we're meeting every day this week. I will give you a heads up that next week, both because of Labor Day and because of an IJS all-staff retreat, next week we are actually meeting live only on Tuesday and Friday, just to let people know that. But of course, we'll remind people of that. Just wanted to give folks a heads up of that. But we are meeting every day this week at our usual time. So thank you so much, David, once again, and thanks to Kat and all of you for being here.
Mark, thank you. And I just because I saw in the chat, no, we're not a synagogue. We're a temple. We're a school, and we're not religious, but we are using the spiritual tradition of Jewish mysticism called Kabbalah to really allow people to delve into text and study and practice for their spiritual growth. Chodesh Tov.
Chodesh Tov, everyone. Okay, hope to see you.